Cold blue lights flickered across the metal walls as the research outpost shuddered under the storm. The night outside was a frozen wasteland, a place where even machines struggled to survive. Yet inside the lone human station, someone was awake. Someone who shouldn't have been there at all. Rylan Hayes stood near the broken window, staring out at the endless sheets of ice smashing against the dome. He had been sent to this remote moon to repair a few sensors, nothing more. But the moment he landed, everything had gone wrong. Communication towers went silent. Navigation systems failed. And then, the screaming started. He wasn't sure if it came from outside or inside. The wind howled again, sharp, violent, almost angry. But then he heard something different. A faint tapping. Soft. Careful. Like someone trying not to be heard. Rylan froze. The tapping came again. Not wind. Not ice. Someone was knocking. With slow, tense steps, he moved toward the door. His breath fogged in the cold air. His boots echoed on the metal floor, every sound making his heartbeat louder. The emergency lights turned everything red, like the hallway was bleeding. Rylan reached for the control panel. His hand trembled, but he forced it still. He pressed the button. The door slid open with a hiss, and he stepped back in shock. A figure stood outside. Small, thin, wrapped in torn silver fabric that whipped in the icy wind. The figure stumbled forward, collapsing to their knees. Their skin was pale blue. Their eyes glowed faintly, filled with fear and something else, desperation. It was an alien girl. Rylan had seen alien species before, but never one like her. Her body shook violently from the cold. She lifted her head, and her voice came out cracked and weak. "Human, please, don't close the door." Rylan didn't know what to say. His mind screamed to stay away. Every training manual told him the same thing. Unknown species, unknown danger, create distance. Yet he didn't move. Something in her trembling voice stopped him. Something in her eyes made him forget fear entirely. She looked terrified of him. "I'm not going to hurt you," Rylan said quietly. Her eyes widened at his words, as if shocked a human would speak gently. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Rylan instinctively moved forward and caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was ice cold, far colder than it should be. He could feel her heartbeat. Weak. Fading. "What happened to you?" he whispered. She took a slow breath. "They left me. My own people left me to die in the storm." Her voice broke. "I ran to the only light I saw. Yours." Rylan swallowed hard. The storm outside roared like a monster trying to break in. A million thoughts rushed through his head, but one stood out stronger than the rest. She came to him for safety. He tightened his grip around her fragile form. "You're safe now," he said. "I promise." Her eyes met his, full of fear, pain, and a hope so small it almost wasn't there. "Will you stay?" she whispered. Rylan didn't hesitate. "Yes. I'm not going anywhere." Behind them, the lights in the outpost flickered again. Something big slammed against the outer hull. The girl flinched, but Rylan didn't loosen his hold. Whatever was hunting her outside, whatever had chased her through the frozen night, whatever had made her run to him, it wasn't getting in. Not while a human stood between them. Not tonight. The storm grew louder as Rylan carried the alien girl deeper into the outpost. The metal corridors moaned under the pressure, as if the whole building feared what was lurking outside. The girl clung weakly to his uniform, her fingers cold and shaking. He laid her gently on a medical cot. The scanner flickered, confused, unable to read her vitals. Her biology was nothing like he had seen before. Veins glowing faintly, breath sharp and shallow, heart beating in an uneven rhythm. Rylan grabbed a thermal blanket and wrapped it around her. She winced. "Warm, it hurts." He paused. "Are you allergic to heat?" She shook her head slowly. "No. I just forgot what warm feels like." Something inside him twisted. Forgot? How long had she been wandering the frozen wasteland? Rylan lowered the temperature until she relaxed again. Her eyes fluttered open. They were brighter now, glowing like two small lanterns in the dark room. She watched him with a strange mix of caution and wonder. "You didn't ask my name," she whispered. "I figured you'd tell me when you felt safe." She blinked, almost surprised. "My name is Lyra." Rylan nodded. "I'm Rylan Hayes. Technician. Human. Currently stuck on a moon that hates me." For the first time, her lips curled into a tiny smile. It lasted only a second before fear returned to her face. "They will come," she said. "The ones who left me. They don't like loose ends." Rylan leaned forward. Why did they leave you? Lyra hesitated. Her hands trembled, and she tightened the blanket around her shoulders. I wasn't supposed to be born, she said softly. My species doesn't allow people like me. They said I was a mistake. They said I didn't deserve a place in the colony. Rylan felt his chest tighten. Abandoned by her own people. Left to die in a storm. He clenched his fists. That's not how humans do things. I know, she whispered. That's why I ran to your light. Humans, you always fight for each other. Rylan didn't know what to say. Her voice shook, but not from cold. She was scared of her own memories. What happens if they find you? He asked quietly. Lyra looked away. They will erase me. They erase all mistakes. Rylan's jaw tightened. Anger warmed his blood. Well, he said, they'll have to go through me first. Her glowing eyes snapped up to him. Why would you defend someone like me? Rylan shrugged. Because you came to my door asking for help. And humans don't turn their backs on people in need. A sudden alarm blared. The lights flashed bright red. External motion detected. Unknown signature. Distance, 300 meters, and closing. Lyra's breath hitched. They found me. Rylan grabbed his jacket and reached for the emergency power switch. Not yet. They're just searching the area. Another impact hit the outer hull, harder this time. Something was scraping the metal, circling the building like a predator sniffing its prey. Lyra curled into herself. Please, please don't let them take me. Rylan crouched beside her. Lyra, listen to me. I'm human. And humans don't run when someone needs protection. Her trembling stopped. Her eyes softened, trust forming where there was only fear before. Then the power cut out. Darkness filled the room. Outside, something screamed. Not wind. Not storm. Something alive. Rylan moved slowly, placing himself between Lyra and the door as the emergency backup lights flickered on, painting the room with a weak red glow. Stay behind me, he said calmly. Lyra whispered, Why are you doing this? Rylan gave a small, determined smile. Because you're not alone anymore. Something slammed against the outpost again, closer this time. And Rylan Hayes, a simple technician, stood like a shield between a terrified girl and the monsters that wanted her erased. Not because he had to. Because he chose to. Because sometimes, one human is enough. The outpost shook again, harder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling as metal beams groaned under the pressure. Rylan steadied himself against the wall, feeling the vibration run through his bones. Whatever was outside, it was powerful. Lyra flinched with every impact. Her glowing eyes darted around the room, searching for any corner that felt safe. But the truth was clear. There was no safe corner left inside the outpost. Rylan stepped to the console, tapped a few commands, and pulled up the exterior cameras. Static covered most screens. Only one camera worked. Camera 4, pointed at the east entrance. Rylan sucked in a sharp breath. 3 tall figures moved through the storm. They were thin but long-limbed, with metallic exosuits glowing with pale symbols. Their steps were too smooth, too controlled. They didn't fight the storm. They cut through it like the wind bowed out of respect. Those aren't rescue teams, Rylan muttered. Lyra's voice trembled. They're purifiers. Rylan turned to her. What does that mean? She hugged herself tightly. They remove anything that breaks the rules of our colony. They call it cleansing. Rylan's jaw tightened. So they're here to kill you. Lyra nodded slowly. And anyone who helps me. Rylan stepped closer to the screen, studying their movements. The purifiers spread out, scanning every inch of the outpost. One of them tilted its head in an unnatural angle, like listening for something only it could hear. Rylan, Lyra whispered. They can track my energy. They will find us. Rylan turned toward her, eyes steady, voice firm. Not if we move first. He crossed the room and grabbed a toolkit, sliding a multi-wrench into his belt. It wasn't much, but humans had a talent for turning ordinary tools into weapons when they needed to. The building shook again, this time from the roof. Lyra gasped. They're testing the structure. Rylan nodded grimly, seeing where it breaks. He didn't waste time. He helped Lyra stand. She wobbled, but he steadied her. Her skin glowed softly as she drew in slow breaths, trying to keep herself calm. We're heading to the power core, Rylan said. If I overload it, the heat signature will confuse them. It'll look like you're everywhere at once. You want to blind them? She asked. Exactly. But the core room, it's freezing. Even for humans. Rylan gave a half smile. I've worked in worse places. They moved quickly through the dark corridors. The storm's roar faded, replaced by the faint scraping of metal on metal, purifiers climbing the outer walls. Lyra gripped his sleeve tightly, her steps growing more unsteady. Rylan, they weren't supposed to follow me this far. Well, they did, he said. And now we deal with it. They reached a stairwell leading down. A sudden bang echoed above them. Then the sound of something heavy landing inside the outpost. They're in, Lyra whispered. Then we moved faster. Rylan guided her down the stairs. The lights flickered as if warning them, pushing them forward. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Frost formed on the railing. Their breath turned to thick clouds. Lyra shivered violently. My kind, we don't do well underground. Why? Rylan asked. We evolved in open air. Underground feels like a cage. Rylan stopped, placing a hand on her shoulder. You're not in a cage. You're with me. Just focus on breathing. His voice steadied her. Her trembling slowed. They continued downward until they reached a heavy steel door marked Reactor Access, Authorized Personnel Only. Something clanged in the hall above them. Rylan tapped the panel. Come on, open. The panel sparked. The storm had damaged the circuits. Lyra stepped forward. She placed her glowing hand over the panel. The light from her skin pulsed. The lock clicked. The door slid open. Rylan stared at her. You can do that. She lowered her hand. I can do many things if I'm not afraid. They entered the reactor chamber. The core hummed in the center, its blue glow lighting the room. Outside, footsteps grew closer, heavy, precise, almost mechanical. Rylan, Lyra whispered, voice barely steady. They're coming. I know. He tightened his grip on the tool in his hand, eyes fixed on the door. A human technician and an abandoned alien girl stood alone in the cold belly of a dying outpost, while 3 silent hunters closed in. Rylan exhaled slowly. Round 1, he murmured. Let's see what you've got. The reactor room hummed like a sleeping beast. Blue light rippled across the metal walls, casting long shadows behind Rylan and Lyra. The cold was sharp, deep enough to sting Rylan's lungs, but he ignored it. Humans were good at ignoring pain when it mattered. He moved to the control panel beside the core. Wires flickered with unstable electricity. The storm had damaged more systems than he expected. Lyra kept her eyes on the stairwell behind them. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Slow. Heavy. Measured. The purifiers were not rushing. They didn't need to. Hunters never rush when they know their prey is trapped. Rylan worked quickly, pulling off a metal plate and exposing the main conduits. If I overload these circuits, he said, it'll release a wave of heat and radiation. Lyra's eyes widened. That will kill us. Not if I direct the burst through the ventilation shafts. Rylan pointed at a diagram on the screen. The outpost has 12 vents. If I send the surge upward, it'll look like your energy is in every room. Lyra swallowed hard. That might confuse them for a few minutes. A few minutes, Rylan said, is enough for a human. Something metallic scraped outside the reactor door. Lyra stepped back instinctively. Her glow dimmed with fear. Rylan placed a hand on her shoulder. Stay behind the core, no matter what you hear. She hesitated. Rylan, if they catch you. They won't. Her voice cracked. You can't promise that. Rylan gave her a small, uneven smile. Humans are good at breaking impossible odds. It's what we do. The reactor door shuddered. Then another hit. Harder. The hinges groaned. They're forcing it open, Lyra whispered. Rylan grabbed a long metal rod from the tool rack. Not a weapon, but anything in a human's hand could become one. The purifiers struck the door again. A small dent appeared. Frost scattered from the frame. Rylan, Lyra said, voice trembling. There are 3 of them. I know. They are trained hunters. I know. They don't miss. Rylan lifted the rod, holding it steady. Then I'll make them miss. The door bent inward slightly. A glowing blade slid through the gap, cutting the metal like paper. The purifiers were slicing their way inside. Rylan tapped a switch on the console. Reactor overload started. 60 seconds until surge. The alarm echoed through the room. Lyra gasped. You started it now? If I wait, Rylan said, we die before it triggers. The blade withdrew from the gap. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the door blew inward. A purifier stepped through the smoke. Its body was tall and slender, covered in sharp, silver armor. Its eyes glowed white, scanning the room with cold precision. It turned its head toward Rylan. Target locked. Rylan exhaled, gripping the rod tighter. The purifier stepped forward. Silent. Deadly. Then Rylan took the first swing. The rod struck the purifier's arm, sending sparks flying. The creature didn't fall, but it did stumble, just enough for Rylan to dive behind a support beam as the creature slashed the air where he stood moments ago. The second purifier entered. Then the third. Their movements were synchronized, 3 predators closing in. Lyra ducked behind the core, hands over her mouth, terrified but unable to look away. Rylan slid across the floor, grabbing a loose cable and yanking it. Electricity cracked through the air, hitting one purifier in the chest. The creature convulsed, its armor flickering, but it did not fall. It turned its head slowly toward Rylan. Great, Rylan muttered. You're tougher than you look. The countdown beeped. 20 seconds. Rylan dodged another slash, the blade slicing deep into the wall. He swung the rod again, hitting the creature's knee joint. This time it buckled slightly. Humans knew how to find weak spots, even in things they didn't understand. The purifier reacted with surprising speed, backhanding Rylan across the room. He crashed into a console, pain blasting through his ribs. Lyra cried out. Rylan! He forced himself up. Still alive. The purifiers advanced, moving together in a triangular pattern. They were cornering him. The countdown beeped again. 10 seconds. Rylan staggered backward toward a vent panel. He kicked it open. 6 seconds. The purifiers raised their blades. For seconds. Rylan yelled, Lyra, hold on. 2 seconds. The reactor exploded with light. A massive wave of heat burst upward through the vents. Blue fire shot through every corridor. The purifiers paused, stunned as their sensors were flooded with false readings. They turned their heads in every direction, confused. Rylan grabbed Lyra's hand. Move. He pulled her toward the now open maintenance tunnel. Behind them, the reactor chamber burned with blinding light, and the purifiers howled in frustration. For the first time, the hunters were unsure. And humans? Humans thrived in chaos. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, cold, and filled with drifting vapor. Rylan and Lyra moved quickly, their footsteps splashing through shallow puddles of coolant. The reactor overload had shaken the outpost to its core. Pipes rattled, vents hissed, and alarms wailed like distant cries. Behind them, the faint metallic footsteps of the purifiers echoed through the hallways. They were hunting again, confused for a moment, but not defeated. Lyra followed close, gripping Rylan's arm with trembling fingers. Her glow flickered like a weak lantern fighting wind. Rylan, are you hurt? She whispered. He wiped blood from the corner of his mouth. I've had worse. I'm still walking. That's what matters. She lowered her eyes. If you hadn't pulled me, the blast would've. Hey. Rylan stopped and turned to her. I told you. I'm not leaving you behind. Her lips parted slightly, as if she couldn't understand why someone would fight so hard for her. No one ever had. He led her onward. The tunnel sloped downward, deeper beneath the outpost. Pipes dripped freezing water. They turned a corner, only to stop abruptly. The tunnel dead-ended. A collapsed section blocked the entire passage, metal beams twisted under the pressure of the storm. Lyra's voice shook. We're trapped. Rylan pressed his palm against the rubble. No, there's always another way. He scanned the walls. Something caught his eye, a small ventilation hatch, half-rusted but intact. That leads to the old cargo bay, Rylan said. If we can make it there, we can seal the bulkhead and buy time. Lyra looked at the vent. It was tiny, too tiny for Rylan. You can fit, he said quietly. I can't. Lyra stepped back. I won't leave you. Rylan crouched beside the hatch. This isn't about leaving. It's about strategy. You go through, open the bay door from the inside, and I'll meet you there. No, Lyra's voice cracked. Every time I trusted someone, they let me disappear alone. I won't do it again. Rylan placed a hand on her shoulder. Lyra, look at me. She slowly met his eyes. I'm not them. You're not disappearing. I'm getting to that cargo bay. I promise. Her glow brightened with emotion, hesitation melting into fragile trust. But before she could answer, clang. The metallic footsteps grew louder. The purifiers were entering the tunnel behind them. Rylan grabbed the vent handle and yanked. Rusted bolts snapped. The hatch swung open. Go, he whispered. Now. She hesitated, chest rising with fear. Lyra, he said, softer now. You survived a storm that kills machines. You ran across ice with hunters behind you. You're stronger than you think. Her eyes widened. No one had ever called her strong. She crawled into the vent. Her hand remained on the edge for a moment, almost reaching for his. He touched her fingers gently. I'll be right behind you. She nodded and disappeared into the dark duct. Ryland turned back, just as the first purifier appeared at the far end of the tunnel. Its white eyes locked onto him instantly. Yeah, Ryland muttered, lifting a loose metal pipe. Come on then. The purifier advanced, blades unfolding with a chilling hiss. Ryland backed toward the rubble pile. He tapped an exposed coolant pipe. Frost mist filled the tunnel, swirling around him. The purifier hesitated, its sensors struggling. Ryland swung the pipe hard against the coolant line. Whoosh! A thick burst of freezing vapor blasted forward like a white explosion. The purifier staggered, armor frosting over. Ryland didn't wait. He sprinted back toward another hatch higher on the wall, a manual access panel that only a desperate human would think to use. He climbed up, boots slipping, fingers burning from the cold. The purifier recovered and lunged. Ryland leaped, caught the edge, pulled himself through. The hatch slammed shut just as a blade pierced the metal. Ryland lay on his back, chest heaving. Darkness surrounded him, but he laughed under his breath. Still alive, he muttered. Told you I'd make it. He pushed himself up and crawled through the narrow shaft. It sloped upward toward the cargo bay. Ahead, faint blue light glowed. Lyra, waiting for him. Not running away. Not hiding. Waiting. Ryland smiled slightly. Yeah, Lyra, he whispered. I'm coming. Behind him, the metal hatch shrieked as the purifiers forced their way through. The chase was far from over. But so was the human. Ryland crawled through the narrow shaft, his breath loud in the cramped darkness. Every muscle in his body felt bruised, but he pushed forward. The faint blue glow ahead grew brighter, the light coming from Lyra's skin. He finally dropped down through an open grate into the old cargo bay. The air was colder here, but wide, open, and silent for now. Lyra rushed toward him the moment he landed. Ryland. Her voice cracked with relief. She grabbed his arm, checking for injuries. You're bleeding. Ryland wiped his cheek. They hit harder than expected. You shouldn't joke, she whispered. But her glow softened in worry. He managed to smile. You opened the bay door? Lyra nodded and pointed to the far end of the chamber, a massive blast door now unlocked. But, Ryland, there's something else. Her voice lowered. This place wasn't empty. Ryland tensed. What do you mean? She led him behind a stack of crates. There, half buried under tarps and frost, lay a piece of abandoned human equipment. A survival mech suit, old but intact. Ryland's eyes widened. An Ares mark, too. I thought they discontinued these. They did, Lyra said. But someone stored this one down here. Ryland ran a hand along the armored plating. Rust had eaten parts of it, but the central frame looked strong. If he could power it, it will help us. Lyra asked softly. Ryland nodded. If I can wake it up in time. But time was not on their side. A deep metallic clang echoed through the shaft behind them. Lyra's glow dimmed. They're coming. Ryland moved fast. He tore open a panel on the mech's back, exposing its power core. Frost covered everything. The core was nearly dead, but not completely. He grabbed 2 cables and snapped them together. Sparks flew. The mech shuddered. Lights flickered across its chest. Come on, Ryland whispered, shaking cold from his fingers. Wake up. Another clang. Closer. The purifiers were forcing their way into the cargo bay. Lyra stepped beside him, hands glowing faintly. Let me help. Ryland looked at her. Lyra, if you touch this, I can give energy, she said, voice trembling. Not much, but enough. Before he could stop her, she pressed her palms against the mech's power conduits. Her glow surged, bright, painful, almost white. Ryland reached for her. Lyra, stop. You'll burn yourself. Humans save me, she whispered. I save humans too. Light poured from her small frame into the machine. The mech suit roared, systems booting one after another. Then it stood, tall, heavy, unshaken. Ryland grabbed Lyra as her glow flickered dangerously. She sagged against him, exhausted. I'm okay, she whispered. But she wasn't. Her breath was shallow. Her skin dimmed. He held her close, steadying her. The cargo bay door behind them exploded inward. 3 purifiers stepped through, blades glowing, white eyes locked onto Lyra. Target found. Eliminate. Ryland stepped in front of her. The purifiers moved as one. Ryland didn't back down. With one arm supporting Lyra, he reached behind him with his free hand and touched the mech's control gauntlet. The suit synchronized with his biosignal. Exoservos hummed to life. The Ares Mark II activated. The metal giant stepped forward, responding to his movements. Ryland's voice came out low and steady. You want her? The mech's arm cannon locked into place. You'll have to go through me. The purifiers charged. Ryland swung the mech's arm. The metal fist collided with the first purifier, sending it crashing into a wall, armor cracking under the blow. The second purifier leaped, blade aimed at Ryland's chest. He twisted the mech, blocking the strike with a reinforced shoulder plate. Sparks rained across the floor. The third purifier raised a plasma spear, and Ryland fired the mech's arm cannon. The shot blasted through the cargo bay, slamming the purifier backward into a stack of crates. Lyra watched, breath trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. You're incredible, she whispered. Ryland smirked inside the cockpit. Humans have their moments. But the victory didn't last. The first purifier rose again, armor shattered but not defeated. Its eyes burned brighter, targeting Lyra with precision. Ryland, she screamed. He turned, but not fast enough. The purifier lunged. Lyra instinctively lifted her hands, releasing a burst of energy, not strong, not controlled, but desperate. A small shockwave pushed the purifier back only inches, but those inches were enough. Ryland slammed the mech's arm down, crushing the purifier to the floor. Silence filled the cargo bay. Ryland lowered the mech to one knee beside Lyra. He opened the cockpit and jumped down, catching her before she collapsed. Her glow was faint now. Unsteady. You okay? He breathed. She nodded weakly. Ryland, why do humans fight so hard? Because someone has to, he said. And today it's me. She leaned into him, trusting him completely. But the danger was not over. A soft alarm echoed through the cargo bay. The outpost sensors picked up something massive approaching through the storm. Something bigger than the purifiers. Ryland looked toward the main blast door, jaw tightening. More are coming, he whispered. Lyra gripped his sleeve. Then what do we do? Ryland held her closer. We run. Together. He stood, keeping her close, and the mech followed behind like a loyal iron guardian. The final battle had not yet begun, but humanity was already standing tall. Warning sirens echoed through the cargo bay. The metal floor vibrated under Ryland's boots as something enormous moved outside the outpost. The storm raged harder than ever, but the footsteps cutting through it were heavier than any purifier. Lyra clung to Ryland's arm, her glow faint and unsteady. She felt the vibration too. Ryland, that isn't a purifier. No, he said quietly. It's something worse. The mech suit behind them scanned the outside. A deep, distorted tone filled the bay. Life form, Purifier Prime, Class Omega. Warning, high-risk entity. Lyra's breath caught. They sent a prime. They never send primes unless they're terrified of something, Ryland finished. Terrified of you. Lyra lowered her eyes. They fear what I am. Ryland cupped her face gently. You're not something to fear. You're someone worth saving. She blinked hard, tears gathering at the edges. Why? I'm only a mistake to them. You're not a mistake to me, Ryland said softly. And not to anyone who sees you as a person. Before she could reply, the entire cargo bay shook as the blast door bent inward. Boom. Another strike. The steel dented. Boom. A long crack split across the surface. Lyra pulled in a shaky breath. Ryland, you can't fight a prime. Maybe not, he said. But humans don't stop just because someone says we can't. The crack widened. A blinding white blade slid through the steel. Ryland, Lyra whispered, gripping his shirt, run. Please. If you die because of me. He shook his head. If I run now, then I'm not human anymore. She froze. Because she understood it. Humans didn't win because they were the strongest. They won because they refused to give up. The door finally exploded inward. The Purifier Prime stepped through. It was twice the size of the others, wrapped in armor so thick it looked carved from ice and metal. Its white eyes glowed with cold judgment. Its voice echoed like thunder. Unauthorized life form. Eliminate. Lyra stumbled back, but Ryland stepped in front of her. The Prime raised a massive arm, and Ryland commanded the mech suit behind him to attack. The Ares Mark II launched forward with a roar, slamming its fist into the Prime's chest. The impact shook the room, but the Prime did not fall. Instead, it drove its armored hand into the mech, lifting it off the ground and hurling it across the bay. The mech smashed into a wall and collapsed in a broken heap. Ryland's heart dropped. That was our best weapon. The Prime turned its gaze directly toward Lyra. Ryland grabbed her hand. We're leaving. There's nowhere left, Lyra whispered. Yes, there is. He pointed to the emergency launch hatch on the far wall, an old escape tunnel leading to the frozen cliffs outside. We go through there. But the storm. We survived worse. The Prime stepped forward. Ryland pulled Lyra toward the hatch, but she stopped suddenly. Her small body trembled. Her glow brightened, then brightened more, then more. Lyra, I won't run anymore, she said softly. Her voice was calm. Steady. Brave. Ryland grabbed her shoulders. What are you doing? What you taught me, she whispered. Humans don't run when someone needs protection. The glow from her chest pulsed brighter, so bright it hurt Ryland's eyes. No. Lyra, listen to me. His voice cracked. You don't have to do this. I do, she said. Because you showed me I matter. Because you stayed. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I won't let them take you too. The Prime raised its blade. Lyra stepped forward, hands shining like twin stars. Lyra, stop! Ryland shouted. But it was too late. She released a massive shockwave of light. The blast filled the cargo bay like a miniature sun. The Prime staggered back, armor melting at the edges. Its sensors screamed as the light overwhelmed its systems. Ryland shielded his eyes. Lyra. The Prime roared in fury, stumbling but not falling. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her glow fading again. Ryland ran to her, lifting her into his arms. Stay with me, please. Her voice was barely a breath. Did I help? You saved me, Ryland whispered. You saved both of us. The Prime dragged itself forward, cracked armor sizzling. Target, reacquire. Ryland stood up, holding Lyra close. His eyes were hard, determined. He stepped onto the mech's fallen frame, reached down, and tore free the high-energy plasma core. Sparks flew. The core glowed violently in his hand. Ryland looked at the Prime. You're not touching her. The Prime charged. Ryland threw the plasma core. Boom. The explosion shook the entire outpost. The Prime vanished in a storm of fire and metal. Silence followed. Only the wind held now. Ryland fell to his knees, still holding Lyra. Her glow flickered weakly. Ryland, she whispered. I'm here, he said softly. Will you stay? He kissed her forehead gently. I'll stay, he said. I'll stay as long as you want. Her glow steadied, small, but alive. Outside, rescue beacons lit the sky. The human fleet, finally picking up Ryland's emergency signals, was arriving through the storm. Help was coming. Lyra wasn't alone anymore. And neither was Ryland. Two worlds had tried to erase her. But a human chose to protect her. And that changed everything.